Hey guys, welcome back to Mystic Mamas. I'm your host, Dakota,
And Danielle.
and today we're going to talk about the roommate phase. And if you don't know what it is, I feel like for me, it's a phase where things are getting less intimate and more transactional within your relationship after baby. And maybe this happens without baby, but for me, I'll be honest here, this is my longest relationship, so I'm not too sure on that one. But also, this has just been a really hard, transitional phase, I feel like, for our relationship in general. And so we definitely want to kind of bring it up and tell you guys, well, I guess maybe relate to you guys if you're feeling the same thing, because we had a couple of people tell us that this is something that they would like us to touch on. So I hope this one's
Yeah,
for you. Go ahead.
yeah, for sure. And also, I feel like it's a very normal part of parenthood. And I'm not sure how often it's talked about. I didn't know it was a thing until I became a mom, and I kind of heard it talked about a little bit. And so we just kind of want to normalize it and
Yeah.
let everyone know that it's just kind of like part of the process. I mean, in our experience, at least, I think that it's probably an experience a lot of us go through. You might not even realize it's happening until you're like, oh shit, like, you know what, this makes sense. This is how I've been feeling. Now, I don't know, like, I can't speak for people that have a lot of help. I feel like maybe you can skip
Mhm.
the roommate phase if you have outside help or like nannies and things where you can kind of still prioritize your relationship. But to me, I feel like, especially as new motherhood, when you're just now becoming like the first time through, is definitely an eye-opening experience in terms of like relationship and how you guys flow together.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole new phase that you guys, I guess, don't. Well, for us, right? Unexpected pregnancies, we didn't expect to even go through this phase. So it's just like being slammed
Yeah.
into a wall for the first time or something. I don't know what a better analogy would be, but
Yeah, well, it's hard because like it just happens. It's not something you like make happen. It's not something that it's
hmm
just like all of a sudden you look up and it's like all things baby, all things. And it's hard whenever you're in the like trenches of newborn, and you feel as from a woman's perspective, of course, I don't know how men feel through this, but like me personally, like came home with this baby. I had a lot of postpartum anxiety. I felt weird in my body. I felt like it was all no sleep, no sleep. Take care of baby, take care of baby. And it doesn't really leave room for anything else especially in the beginning. I feel like now we're 2 years, almost 2 years in, there's a lot more space for it, but it's still very much so something we are working through and like actively having to be like, oh shit, it's been like almost 2 years of this phase where we just like ships passing in the night kind of, because work and all the things that we're tied to, it's just difficult.
yeah, no, I agree. It's like you have more on your plate in less time. And I feel like it's especially that because your partner, well, for us, right? I'm gonna keep using us as an example because for us, we don't have extra help. So our partners are working pretty much full time, right? 24/7. And then all they're doing is
Overtime, full time.
yeah, no, literally overtime,
Yeah.
picking up shifts, doing side jobs, like all the things.
Yeah.
So it's like they come home and the only thing we really get to do is baby's bedtime, bath time, and then go to sleep, put our head on the pillow. And if we do have time, it is sometimes, watching TV because that's all the energy that we have left to do. Like that's I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. That's the only thing we have like want to do when we have low energy during that time. So I
Yeah.
feel like there's like not room for intimacy either. And I'll be honest on my end, I really didn't want to have sex for a while after the baby. It was very scary for me personally. And I feel like it was scary for me for one, because I've heard all the stories about people getting pregnant right after they got pregnant and had their baby.
Facts.
You're like extra fertile. And so I was not trying to be one of those people, especially because let's be honest here, I was never trying to be a mom in the beginning anyway. So
Yeah, it was literally one of my worst nightmares. I was like we were both in the trenches in new motherhood, and it was
mhm,
like the last thing I could even possibly handle is a second pregnancy. Like,
mhm.
God bless those of you that do like two under two or have like back to back kids. That's your you are superhuman people, but to me, I knew that would be that tiny like hair thin strand I was hanging on to would have been broken, and it would have been not for me. And I've told you this before. It was almost like I had PTSD from sex. Like, no, now I know what this can cause. Now I know what can happen. And now, and like when I got on a birth control, I got on the depot shot. Don't do that. And
Don't do that.
I was like bleeding for months after. So it was like, I really didn't want to have sex. There was no like, even now, I feel like it's taken me up to this point to like kind of get my like somewhat of a sex drive back and like kind of
Same.
level those hormones where it's like, it's still nowhere near where it was before I had a baby. To be really honest with you guys, I it's just been hard, and I don't know what that is, if it's just my hormones balancing out or like still feeling somewhat uncomfortable in my body as I get used to this new chapter of life. Also, I know Dakota touched on it, just like exhaustion. Like at the end of the day, both of us, he comes home from work, he does nighttime routine. I get a little moment to like finish up stuff around the house or do something for myself. And then it's time for bed. And we're just like, the most we can handle is watching a movie or a TV show. And chances are
Mhm.
he's going to pass out the second his head hits the pillow, because I don't know how men can just do that. But I, it's just one of those things. And then our son wakes up early. There's not much time in the morning either. So it just becomes this like, you have to make time. Whereas prior to children, it was just whatever, whenever the deal. And I think another part is Dakota's just kind of phasing out of this, but both of us had our kids in our room, in our beds, in our like
Mhm.
space the whole first year. And so that made it even like, it wasn't happening. Like, we have this baby in here, we're just bed sharing, we're sleeping. I didn't co-sleep as much as Dakota and them, but still, like, if he woke up in the middle of the night, he was coming in the bed, like, and I would hold him and have to rock him till he fell asleep. Sometimes I would fall asleep doing so, and it was just no time for that specific thing. And it just happens. It's not something you think about, because it's just like all these days roll into each other. Every day, every night, every sleepless night just rolls into the next. And next thing you know, you're like, damn, it's been months actually,
Mhm.
or it's been weeks, or it's like, oh shit, like, I can't even remember. And I know both of us, Dakota and I, don't have that kind of like help. For me personally, the last time Daniel and I got somewhat of a few hours to ourselves without the baby together was when Dakota actually, thank you for this, but actually watched him when he was 6 weeks old. He's going to be 20 months this month. Yeah. So he'll be 20 months. And so from 6 weeks to 20 months, we have had no solo date night. No, like, we've had small date nights that we created here at the house after Oliver went to sleep, but nothing that like we actually got to go out and enjoy being our old selves. And that's another thing that I think is hard, is when you become a parent. For some of us, everything changes. Your personality, the things you're into, all these things like shift. And like Daniel and I fell in love going to shows and festivals together, and like bonding over our shared love for like music and live music. And becoming parents kind of shifted that dynamic, whereas like we haven't been able to do that together since I was pregnant. And so we have to like relearn each other in this new like versions of each other. And it's hard because you don't have time. Like I said, like we've been trying to carve out more time to kind of get to know each other on a different level now, but it is something we have to work at, and we have to like redate and relearn and revisit who we are now, because both of us have changed so much in this journey through parenthood, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like coming off the other end for us, it was like we weren't dating a long time beforehand. So having our child, it was like, honestly, it was like throwing us into the weeds at work. Like if you're ever worked in a restaurant, it was just like, okay, you only got to like together 3 months. And then Dakota, you're going to go into depression now. And also you're going to be pregnant. So you can't do anything. Fred, you're going to be on overtime. It's like you don't ever get to come together and like, well, I feel like for us, it was really hard for us to come together and like explore each other again. the only thing we got to do was like kind of complain to each other. And really, it wasn't him, it was me, you know? So it was a lot that I feel like I was putting on him emotionally. And sometimes I still do. But, you know, that's
Felt
what, yeah, literally.
same.
But also it's like, yeah, I just like, another thing is I would say, like, we did have dates and stuff, but it was always, like, with the baby afterwards, right? So, like, we still go out here and there, but we always have the baby. So, yes, we can have quality time, but how deep can your, like, connection and your, like, conversation get if you have a baby you have to attend to? Kinda going
Yeah,
back
it's
to, like, what you said and the fact that, like, you know, you had the baby inside the bed the whole time, or like we did, right? We had the baby in our bed the whole time. So, like, where is the time for any sex? Where is the time for me to even feel like I want to do that because I'm so exhausted? Like, yeah, it's a whole whirlwind that you don't think you're going to go into, especially, I don't know. For me, my sex drive, I'll be honest here, my sex drive has always been very, very high, very high. And then it was like the minute I got pregnant and I had a baby, it's non existent. Like, I have to, like, really get there, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
It's something I never really expected to. I feel that, and it is hard. And I feel you on that with like the baby, even the nights here that we've had like date nights or when we take him out somewhere, it's like you can never fully be with each other because your mind's always going, is the baby
Mhm.
gonna need a bottle? Oh my God, let me get him a snack. Let me get him something to drink. Let me corral him because he's acting crazy. Is he going to wake up if y'all are at home and asleep? Like, it's like you can never fully be present because you know you're responsible for something else right now.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, like, yes, we can have a conversation or try to. I have one of those like really crazy breed of toddlers. So, like, being out in public with him means all eyes and all focus are on this kid. But even at home, like, it's just so hard to be so present when you have to take care of something else
Mhm.
above anything else and keep them from harming themselves. I mean, Dakota and I, even when we're on the phone, it's like, what do you got in your mouth? What do you have? What do you do? Like, it's constant. It's not ever like, oh, we can chill together and have this like nice conversation and catch up while our kid is like screeching in the next room.
Yeah. Most definitely. Or, I mean, if I'm sure most of you have monitors if you have a kid, and like I cannot. If I hear my kid crying and I hear my kid whining at all, or I see the monitor, I'm like, I gotta turn that off, unplug it. If we're gonna get serious here, and I'm about to get naked, I need this off. I need
No,
her
for
in bed. I need her asleep. Like, I can't concentrate. Like, that's not sexy to me. Like, that thing,
yeah.
like, us doing this created that thing, and that thing is hard sometimes, and so I need that off.
N-
Yeah. It's
No, for real. It's definitely one of those things where we have to like put the monitor down, like can't see it, can't even catch contact with it. And I also feel the same in the fact that a lot of it during the beginning was Daniel not only having to take care of a newborn but take care of me because I had such bad postpartum anxiety and
Mhm,
depression. And like, well,
exactly.
I honestly feel like the anxiety was so bad that it led to such a deep depression, and he really had to, and God bless his soul because he really did a great job, but I know he must have been emotionally drained just from like
Yeah.
all of it. And
Mhm.
so not only was it a toll on me, but like to have perspective for his experience too, whereas like he was constantly navigating my emotions and my needs and my stuff while also navigating a new parenthood, work, and a baby. And so like it wasn't just like, oh, it was me, but he also struggled with having a sex drive and having like
Yeah.
not and tiptoeing around my needs and my desires and like how tired I was and how like my recovering body, because even after 6 weeks you're still recovering, you're still like coming through, and something that was a trauma to your body in a sense. Childbirth is heavy no matter which way you go. It's still like your body needs time to recover, and he was very, very respectful of that. And also at the same time, I'm sure it was hard for him too, in a different way, in a different sense. And it's just been kind of difficult to like come back together in a new way than we have before. And like all of this was happening like probably in the hardest time period of our lives between like between all of it. All of it was just really difficult. And to me, Dakota and I have talked about this before. I feel like healthy relationships, I think for both of us, this is probably our longest relationship and our healthiest relationship.
Mhm.
And somehow, for me, I'm gonna speak for myself here, but somehow the hardest relationship. In a way that healthy relationships are so different from toxic ones. In toxic ones, it's kind of like you fight, you do these things, you're ugly to each other. Or again, is my experience with my past toxic relationships. There's not a lot of care, but in healthy, you kind of have to really like look at yourself, look at how you're projecting, at what, take responsibility for your role in your like out of pocket arguments or whatever. And you really have to have a different kind of like compassion and understanding for your partner, for their experience, for every part of it. Whereas my past, like with toxic relationships, I was selfish with it. Like, you're doing this to me. And like, honestly, I probably should have like not even engaged with these relationships. But at the same time, in a healthy one, it's like, we're here. We got to work through this. We got to do this in a healthy way. Like it's not as easy as just being like, get the fuck out, please, and never talk to me again.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, especially if you've gone down like the spiritual path, I was actually just learning this. But if you're going in a spiritual path, the conflict is for lovers. So, what does that mean? It means that you don't want to run or be avoidant inside of your relationship because you know that whenever you have conflict and you are like coming up to this, right? The only way I can think of is like disagreement or conflict, right? Then you are understanding that like there is something within me that needs to be healed. There's something that I need to work on. So yes, I can say, "Hey, I don't like when you do like leave the I'm trying to think of something. When you like leave the dishes in the sink, right?" But instead of saying it like that, you can say, when you leave the dishes in the sink, it makes me feel unappreciated. And when I feel unappreciated, I start to think bad thoughts and I don't want to be in this relationship. And it makes me feel alone because I'm alone everywhere. And see, that's how you're supposed to word it rather than you're making me feel this way, because that's not true. The only person who can make you feel a certain way is you. They cannot like take a feeling and put it inside of your body. The only person that can conjure up those feelings within is yourself. So it's really important to take a look at what you're doing and how you're feeling. And also, if you want to really um, kind of get past that, other than communicating, right? You really want to focus on what is the feeling within my body. And I know this goes more down a spiritual path, but like really try to feel the feelings within. I also, again, just learned this. This is from Saul that I learned this from. But he talks about how, like, in a relationship, what you can do if you're having conflict, which you want to, right? You want to go through those, like, I'm feeling this way, and this is making me feel this way. Because when you do that, you get to find the root of it, like the history between it all. So, like, where did this actually come from? Oh, okay. I was abandoned by my mother. I was abandoned by my father. And so they made me feel alone. And so that allows you to really get to the root of it. It actually has nothing to do with the conversation or argument that you guys are having then. It really has to do with like, how can I heal it now? This is coming up for me now. This is showing its face now. I need to work through it. And no better person than to work through it with my partner, the most intimate person I am here with, right? And then it allows you to get more like closer to them. I feel like there's so much heart and love after something that you can work through because you get to know each other a little deeper, a little better. And on top of that, I wanted to mention that when it comes to communication, it's really about getting honest with yourself, right? Like, just be so fucking for real. Like, why am I actually getting mad right now? Like, is it because the dishes are in the sink? Or is it because he hasn't told me that he's appreciated by everything that I've done today? Like, I'll give you guys a real life example. The other day, I was doing exactly the dishes, actually. And I was getting pissed off, dude. Like my mind was running. My mind was running. And I like stopped and I just, instead of listening and going and flowing with the stories inside my head, I took a moment to be like, what is it that I'm needing in this moment? Because it's really not the fact that he didn't do the dishes, right? Or that he didn't pick up after himself. Like, what is actually going on? And I got up and I walked to him. I said, hey, I need some appreciation right now. I'm feeling a little low. Like, and he was like, he comes towards me, he's trying to hug me. I said, not physical affection. I don't need that. I was like, I truly need some, like, I need some words of affirmation. I need some appreciation. He's like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, thank you so much for doing the dishes. Thank you for always keeping the house clean. Thank you. Like, and I did feel better, but guess what? It's because I fucking asked for it. So you have to ask for what you want. Like, just be
Yeah.
so fucking for real, bro.
Yeah, it's in the same way, it's almost like you have to it is. You have to almost you have to unlearn toxic behaviors of the past too.
Mhm.
Like being in this new healthy relationship was so like known to me
Me
that
too.
I had to really get real with like what is coming up is
Mhm.
just like my ego protecting me the way it used to in toxic relationships. Me projecting an experience from the past onto a man that has literally never given me a reason to feel the way I'm feeling right now to begin with.
Mhm.
I can trust this guy. We're different than he's way different than anybody else. And like, just because I feel like in the beginning of our relationship, things were so free. We didn't have kids. We're just having fun. Um,
Mhm.
I've noticed it even in like pictures of us before kids versus after. Like there's just so much less responsibility, so much less like seriousness that we're having to almost like find our way back to joy. And I'm still finding myself like projecting parts of the past and like different relationships onto him and having to like unlearn that and respond in a healthy way that actually suits this present day relationship that actually works for us and not something in the past that didn't work for me then and it's certainly not going to work for me now here. And what has helped is kind of like reminding myself to tap into that love that we had before, because I remember whenever I got pregnant, I mean, that's the whole reason all we went through with the pregnancy is because I was just so in love with Daniel. And I knew deep down that like, he's the perfect person for me to even have a kid with. This is where I have to tap into how I felt a lot in that moment, because with so much of life happening since, it's hard because life does become so much like more serious, quote unquote, right? Like you have a kid
Mhm.
to take care of now. You can't just like go with the flow in certain areas. Like you have to pack a diaper bag when we leave the house. We have to make sure we have everything we need. It's not like we can just up and go to brunch and get drunk on some mimosas for the day. It's like I can't. It's
That
a
does sound
lot
nice
of
though.
not saying I want it, but I'm just saying that's not an opportunity that comes up the way it used to. And like
Yeah.
we have to actually like I don't want to use the word work, right? But like that's when you narrow it down, you kind of have to like work at your relationship a lot more. You have to
Yeah.
find the time. You kind of have to like find small moments in your like day to day, like you got to romanticize your day and your life as
Yeah.
is, and also take inventory. And for me, what that means is like if things really aren't like working, find out ways to like fix it. And like for us recently, like that's the whole reason we're making our move to Corpus back, because I've noticed the stress on our relationship without having anybody here for help. And like also the cost of living here being so crazy, we're like struggling to like not be stressed. And although we're both doing work towards that and like trust, and it's something that like, hey, this environment isn't working for us. Let's find one that will.
Mhm.
And that's what we're doing. And we're very excited. And I know that's going to open up so much space for us to be able to have date nights again and to be able to like re-find each other in this relationship in a way that we haven't been able to yet.
Mhm.
And I'm just so grateful for these struggles, honestly, because it's really shown us like how resilient we are in our relationship. Like through it all, we still find times to like laugh and joke and like make joy in these like deep and dark times we've been through in the last couple of years. Honestly, like it's been a very tough time, and to see our relationship still grow through it has been really beautiful in a way that if you asked me this time last year, I'd be like, what? But on the other side of it, I'm like, wow, it has given us a chance to kind of like solidify a good foundation for the rest.
Yeah. I feel like that's definitely a good way to like I guess, keep the romance alive, right? Is like first take inventory on what's working, what's not. And also, I love that you said that you'll tap into like past versions of you, kind of not past versions, but like the feeling that made you feel the way you're, the reason why you're here in the first place, right? I do that often too. Actually, I did that last night, and I feel like um, Fred and I have been in the roommate phase, but it hasn't been like, oh my God, only the roommate phase. Like we've had moments where it's really intimate and really beautiful. And I feel like it's because I will tap into those moments too. Like last night I just said, hey, like I remember the first time I met you and this is how you made me feel. And like that's why we're here. Like it just like reminiscing on like why we're here in the first place. It's because we have all of this love for each other. And yeah, we created this like little thing that came from straight love, like, so
Yeah,
it's
and
beautiful.
to like kind of piggyback on that, I think it's important to also note that, and especially like it's a powerful thought whenever you're in the trenches of new parenthood and roommate phase, is that intimacy really and truly comes in so many different forms, right? Like, of
Yes.
course, automatically when we think intimate, we think sex and, sexual activities. But truthfully, and especially as parents and adults and long term relationships, there's so much more that is intimate within your lives. Like those really tough nights where the baby's not sleeping and you're crying and you're ready to just like throw in the towel, and your partner comes and hugs you and takes over and
Yeah.
helps you. And that's intimacy. That's having an intimate moment, things that are only between you two, but like how you get through the jokes in the kitchen or jokes in the shower, or moments where he just like rubs your back because you're having a hard day, or however you're dating. It's more. And whenever you like are allowing yourself to kind of like acknowledge those parts of like those intimate parts, right? The more you can find joy and like realize that it might not be the same kind of intimacy you had before, but there's so much more intimate moments now. Like
I think it's just
I'm
about like being intentional with what you're doing and
yeah.
saying for each other. It's just all about being intentional and like the small touches that you create together. So maybe for me, like for instance, I've written like little notes and put them in his lunchbox for work, or I'll send him sweet texts randomly while he's at work, or we'll have those moments where I'm like, hey, remember the love we were having in the very beginning? Like we still have that now, it's just really being intentional about what you're saying and what you're doing together, and really caring for each other, like having the most compassion for each other, even whenever you're having like the roughest day. like I
Yeah.
mhm. I feel like there's
um
been times where it's been that I've been like, I guess unloading on him a whole bunch, and yeah, so it's like really nice for him to, instead of, I mean, right, going back to toxic relationships, I feel like in the past, if I was to ever unload into someone, a lot of the time I would get pushback, like, oh, well, you did this and this and this, like this isn't my fault, and like it's almost like, right, projections. We're just projecting and projecting and projecting on one another. It's like no one could get past like what we're actually trying to say. But with this relationship, which is another thing I've noticed from the beginning, has been there's been so much understanding and compassion towards each other that I've never had before. So like that was something that absolutely allowed me to say yes to having the baby with Fred, was how much understanding and like love I could tell he already had for me, whereas I've never had that, right? So it was just a beautiful thing, and it continues to be a beautiful thing, especially on my hard days with the baby, or his hard days. Like we just sit and listen and like hold each other, like if that's what we're needing, and like just so much love.
Yeah, which is truly, honestly, when you look at it, probably one of the most beautiful forms of intimacy, because anybody can have sex, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
I've I've had one night stands. I'm sure many listeners have. Anyone can have sex. Anyone can have that form of intimacy. And honestly, when you like get down, is it really that intimate if it's just like one of those things? I'm not knocking it. No judgment at
Yeah.
all, like I said. But there's just so much intimacy in a form of a healthy long-term relationship, especially when you become parents. Like some of my most intimate moments with Daniel were when I was giving birth and he was rubbing my feet and like talking me through it all, and like really truly supporting me in a way no one else has. And same with postpartum, he did that. He supported me in such a huge and beautiful way when he would get up early and force me to eat the protein shakes to help my milk flow, and like he was making sure I was eating, and he was making sure I had enough water throughout the day, and making sure all I had to do was worry about the baby and myself. And like it was beautiful and it was intimate. And now looking back, I can see how intimate that was, and how
Mhm.
much that like support in a relationship makes me feel loved in a way that not just sex can. And I read something this morning on like a random post, but it was all, just because you aren't feeling a connection at this time doesn't mean you aren't connected.
Mm.
And it really hit, because sometimes I've had that same, like I've told Dakota, like I just don't feel like we're connecting right now. I feel like we're both going in different directions with certain things, and it feels like sometimes I'm questioning the validity of our relationship, and if it's like long term or not in the long run. And I get in these like fears, and I know a lot of that fear comes up because I also wasn't given um very great examples of healthy relationships growing up and long-term love growing up. It was very much, I'm a child of divorce. My family is quote unquote a broken family. Not that I like to use that term, but I just didn't have any example of like what healthy movement through these forms are. So, and my one of my things is like I instantly feel like I need to run or like leave before someone leaves me type thing. And so to work through this in a healthy way has been hard, but also like a reminder that life is different ebbs and flows, especially with someone else. Like we all go through things, we all change, and it isn't going to feel like it always did all the time, especially after children, right? Like life changes so much. But that doesn't mean that you aren't still connected. It's just a moment in time. And like we really do have to kind of like make the effort to keep that connection going, to keep that like spark, right? Like it's not, everyone's not always on. And so I was really glad I read that, because it really, not only was it perfect for what we're talking about today, but also just like a good reminder that in a long relationship, it's gonna have its moments where you're like, fuck, do I even like this guy right now? Have I ever liked him? And then you're like, oh shit, yeah, I do. It's just a moment. I'm just having a moment. It's just been a tough day. And a lot of times whenever I feel myself like projecting that kind of like shit on Daniel, it's because I'm having a day that's hard, and I'm quote unquote missing when it was just easy and just me by myself in my own apartment. Like we are going to have those moments, but at the end of the day, like there's nothing I love more than having my son and my partner and our little family. Like yesterday, Oliver was sick and we were hanging out on the couch because Oliver wouldn't let either one of us get up. And it was just like, oh, this is a beautiful little moment where it's just like us and there's nothing else that matters. And that's kind of, you just got to kind of like hang on to moments like that, because it's going to be up and down. Like that, just like everything, every relationship has ups and downs, especially the healthy ones. And before I had a healthy relationship, I think I was kind of under the impression that like it would always just be easy. Oh, it should always
Yeah.
just be easy. Like, of course, if it's healthy, it's going to be easy because toxic people fight, but that's not it at all. It's just how you fight and
Mhm.
how you argue changes in a healthy relationship. It
Yeah,
has to be more, like Dakota was saying, the communication has to be different.
exactly. Yeah, I feel like the communication is just like a 180 of toxic relationships. Again, you can just really like talk rather than yell at each other. It's not an
Yeah, to actually
argument. It's
hear you instead of
yeah,
deflect, or uh
exactly.
and someone who actually like changes or shifts what they do to like hears you enough to where they're doing differently. Like I recently had a same kind of connection communication with Daniel, and it wasn't over, I mean the dishes were involved, but it was just about like needing more unasked for help around the house. And Daniel's great. I can ask him to do anything and he will do it right then and there, or, within that kind of time frame. But also like what I need is to not have to have the mental load of asking him. And I had to tell him that, like, hey, look, I appreciate everything you do for us. And I also need more help around the house when you see things that need to be done.
Mhm.
And he took that. And then this morning when I was doing stuff, I walked out and he's doing the dishes. And like, it's something so small, but it's like, okay, he heard me, like for real heard me, and is implementing that into like our as our relationship. Like he sees it, he does it, and it's an easy thing for him to do. Whereas in the past, like I'd be lucky if my ex ever did anything at all I asked. And so that's the difference. It's like, yeah, you're still going to have miscommunications and you're still going to have moments where it's like you're arguing, but also the communication is different. And I think it all ties into like how we get out of the roommate phase also is one, working through it, right? I think Dakota and I are both still like kind of working through getting out and um asking, like she said, I think it's important to ask for what we need and to be more like adamant about, instead of knowing our sex drive is different and our time period is different, and like kind of like planning for more intimate moments if you can as well. I know sometimes that's what happens with Daniel and I, just to be frank, like we won't have time that morning, but we'll be like, hey, look, during Oliver's nap time, let's hang out. And it helps a lot because kids kind of like, not saying permanently, but it kind of takes the spontaneity out of a lot of things. We can't just be spontaneous at all times like we used to. And so actually like being more communicated over like our needs and our wants and our desires, and like being open to that conversation in like a way that's deeper than it was before.
Yeah, I think it's prioritizing quality time, right? Like prioritize
Mm-hmm.
the time that you guys want together. It doesn't just have to be sex, but it could be like, we're gonna have a conversation later. And no, it's not like we need to talk. It's like we need to talk about this, you know? It's just definitely being open to both agreeing that we're not going to be on our phones during this time. We're going to be actually communicating, because I know oftentimes we can be on our phones and then I'll think about it and I'm like, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme, but it's like, oh, like let me take a moment. Like let's take, like we're both here right now. The baby is sleeping. Like let's get to know each other a little more. And something that I had done recently, another thing was you can play games. I know this sounds like, I don't know, whatever, right? It sounds whatever to you, but for me, it's like I like the thought of playing games. It doesn't have to be, again, sexual, but it could be sexual. It could be a sexual game that you guys play together, or it could just be an intimate one. Like I've seen ones on TikTok that you can buy, and it was showing like just a small like clip of what the questions were, and we sat down and we read them together and we talked about like each other's sides, and I think it was really beautiful. It just got me to know like a little bit more of his brain, because this man is a quiet man. Sometimes I'll ask him what's going on up there. He'll be like, nothing. I'm like, ain't no way. There's nothing going on up there, bro.
No, same. And it's funny you mentioned games because I actually like I did this before we actually had a kid, but I bought a game like that and it's called Monogamy. I think I got it off of an Adam and Eve site. I don't know. But it's
Mhm.
actually a really great game. The time we played it was really, really allowed us to connect on a different way and have in a fun way. And I also have it was like an Amazon buy, but it was just like questions for couples. Cause I don't know, sometimes you like feel like we tell a lot of stories, we know a lot. And like, sometimes it's hard for us to come up with like out of pocket or out of
Yeah,
random left field questions that like maybe we want to have the answer to. And like a couple
100%.
times we have played with it, we'll just like draw a card and ask the question that's on the card. And it's usually something. And Daniel's the same way. He very much so is a nothing guy sometimes. And I'm like, no, talk to me, let's communicate.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're thinking. Like you don't have a million and one thoughts. He's got ADHD. I know he's thinking something. But to be fair, sometimes it really is like, oh, it's just like the most random shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going through your brain?
And then me being like, you weren't thinking about us? Like I was? Like
Yeah,
so rude.
and that's another thing that kind of is something like men are simple. Men are way more simple than women, because sometimes the most beautiful thing about communication is sometimes I'm like overthinking something and I'm like, he's got to be doing the same, and he's like, it was just, you're cool, you're
It's
fine. I'm like,
fine. Yeah, I'm
I'm so
like,
sorry I was so rude, or I was so sorry he's like, what? I'm like, okay,
no,
okay,
I know.
all right. And that's helped a lot, is just to just kind of like talk a little bit more and honor like the non-sexual intimacy, because a lot of times that's all we have. And I've done the same thing where we'll be like third our 3-year anniversary, we had to have our date here at the house when Oliver went to sleep, and we watched a movie. But beforehand, like normally we'll sit down and eat and like watch something or watch a movie, because we're getting a dining room table. Not having one is kind of like changed our like dynamic of eating, I feel like.
Mm.
But um now I like stopped the movie and was like, actually, let's just like talk. Let's just enjoy like as if we were out to dinner. Like we don't have to combine the two. We can watch a movie later and eat now. And it really helped a lot to just like take a step back and be like, look, I know we're both tired, but like we need to have a date, even if it's here at the house. Like we can drink our beers out here and have a date as if we were out somewhere, and not like, and I do the same thing with my phone. I'll have to like, oh shit, let put our phones down. Let's
Mhm.
put our phones down and like talk and like just tell me how your day was, or just tell me something. And like a lot of times we also have to remind ourselves to not talk about the baby.
Yeah.
We get kind of caught up in like, of course, right? I'm a stay-at-home mom, and Daniel works so much that a lot of times I find myself like telling him every little thing Oliver did, every little like new thing. Unfortunately for Daniel, he's missed a lot of like first, so I go into detail about his first, or I show him videos or pictures and tell new words. Right now Oliver's talking so much, and every day I feel like he picks up a new word, and so I have to remind myself also that like we're people outside of parenthood, and nothing's more unsexy than talking about your fucking child. I'm sorry, but like all the baby work, all this stuff, like all that, like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, none of this is leading anywhere like that. And like, I want to hear about you. How's your day? And like relearn each other, and not just like, so I have to be like really mindful sometimes about our conversations and where it's leading, because like so much of our life is the baby, and that's beautiful. And I love that we're both such active parents and loving parents. And also our relationship outside of motherhood and fatherhood matters too.
Yeah, it does. Kind of speaking on that, actually, I'll go ahead and chime this in. I want to go into like the sexual realm really quick, because I did talk about asking for what you want when it comes to like, household chores, what you're needing, but you can also ask what you want in the bedroom. I think that's also going to like create that spark for you guys. Maybe it's something that you've just been thrown under the rug for a while, but it is something you really enjoy and you haven't asked for it either in a long time or ever. Like, kind of have that conversation. Tell them what you like, tell them what you don't like. Like, it's okay to do that. And it's just going to create you guys' relationship to be deeper and more intimate yet again. So, I just wanted to touch on that part. It is okay to also be spending some sexy time together, because as we should, right? Like, I feel like when you're in a healthy relationship, especially like sex is so much deeper. At least it is for me. I
Yeah.
won't speak for everybody, but I just feel like it is more deeper. Like, not only that, like, I'm about to get like real TMI maybe, but like it's even like you can like it can be slower, it can be sweeter, it can be like more intimate. And I think that's so beautiful. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on asking for what you want in the bedroom too, because that can also go a long way.
No, and it also creates like a deeper connection, and it allows you to be a little bit more uh, vulnerable. It's a very
Hmm.
vulnerable
Yeah.
situation whenever you put yourself out there like that. And for some, I'm just speaking for myself. I know some people have no issues, no shame in their game,
Yeah.
no issues being the like direct person who's in charge in the bedroom. This has never been my experience, but and like it makes me feel very vulnerable, or I feel like I think my people pleaser comes out, or I don't want to make them feel like they're doing the wrong thing or
Mm-hmm,
something like
hmm.
that. And so it's something that I've recently started to put in practice as well. So it's funny you mentioned that, but also allowing yourself to like switch things up in the bedroom. I have found that Daniel and I, when we do have the time, it feels almost like rushed, almost like we
Yeah.
got to like get through it. Almost like let's just get through this just in case the baby, all those are valid things, right? They're valid worries, but to actually like slow down and take your time and enjoy it and try something new, or try something that makes you both a little uncomfortable, but you can have fun, because there's intimate moments in that too. Like let's say it's weird, and all of a sudden you're both laughing at the whole idea, or like the attempt at whatever you're trying to attempt, and it's like there's intimacy and deep intimacy in that part too. And it's just about like kind of like allowing yourselves to step out of routine and
Hmm.
out of comfort, because I mean, in motherhood and parenthood, I feel like it's a lot of routines, a lot of the same stuff, moving through the motions of life. And in the bedroom, to connect, when you get those moments, it could help a lot to just kind of like break things up, try something new, do something new. tell them exactly what you want, tell them what you don't want. If you someone who's just allowed your partner to keep doing something that they think you like but you don't, it's actually doing your partner and you a disservice, because like they won't know you don't like it unless you don't tell them.
Yeah.
And that can help a lot to kind of like get out of the normal day-to-day routine of things and your normal positions and your normal, without going too deep into it, but you get what I'm saying, like to allow change in there, I guess is the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think another thing too that we could lead into this is like letting your man be in his masculine. Because I know as a spiritual woman, I sometimes want him to do all my spiritual girly little things. Like, let's pray over these crystals. Let's meditate together. Let's do some cacao. Let's do some Pilates. I don't know, all the girly things. And he's just like not about it. And then sometimes I feel like, oh, well, is our relationship ever going to be like spiritual together? Is it ever going to feel like we're connected there? But in reality, like he has his own way of being spiritual. Like, and I know that. I'll have conversations with him and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know you knew that. Like, it's like, wow, either you're listening or you're doing your own work. And that's beautiful. But also, like, he can do that on his own time. He can do that in his own way, in his own masculine way. Like, allow him to be in his own. Like, maybe for him, his spiritual, like, for him, really being spiritual for him is like, I just said that twice, but you know what I'm trying to say, is him going to the gym, whereas mine is like meditating, right? Mine's going to the gym too, but it's just allowing him to do those more mask things. Maybe it's freaking using a hammer and getting stuff done around the house. Like, I don't know. Maybe he thinks about things during those times. Like, just really allowing them to be them and not trying to push your femme on them will allow you guys to have that dynamic together that comes together in a balance, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's important to know, especially well, in my motherhood experience, I've had to really kind of I struggle with that. I feel like I take on a lot, and in my like quest for control, I tend to
Hmm.
like try to control the way he does things, the way he parents, the way he comforts our child, the way he does. Well, I wouldn't do it like that. Like I have had to really like take a step back and like allow him to struggle on his own so that he can figure out how to comfort our kid in his own way, and it can be different than mine and still be okay. And I think kind of relaxing on that and like stepping more into my feminine energy even around the house, and allowing him to kind of take over a few things that I was handling, like certain things in our budget and money wise, and allowing him to kind of like step into a more masculine role, and kind of like allowing myself to let go of control and to let go of like, now I had a lot of postpartum anxiety, so I felt like I needed to be there at all times and do all these things. And now it's like, okay, I need to like let him be. And I did the
Hmm.
same thing that Dakota does. We've talked about it before, where I'm like, will we ever have the same like healing journey? And like, no, bitch, you actually won't. That's nobody does. Like, you can't. The law of free will, right? You can't like force anything. And honestly, men do things so different. Daniel 100% isn't going to be putting crystals underneath the moon and drinking moon water. I mean, he would if I made him a glass, but it's like that's not him.
Fred actually does that. I'll be like, "Hey, you want some moon water?" He's like, "Yeah, what do I do with it? Do I manifest with that?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll like be
Like,
drinking
I
it
mean, he
together."
would, but like he's
Yeah.
not gonna like, oh,
He's
we
not gonna
gotta
put
put
it
out our,
out. Yeah.
yeah, we gotta put out our moon water, and we gotta meditate underneath the moon and all these things, and that's perfectly fine. Like, our journeys to the same destination don't have to be the same. Like, and allowing him, I feel like lately I've been really kind of focusing on doing that, and it has helped us like kind of free up some tension almost, because he's not the type of person who's going to be like, yo, I need you to calm down and let me do things my way. He's going to be like, all right, let me just
Okay. Let me just
honor
do what
her
she needs.
anxieties and let me
Yeah.
just do what she needs, because she might be anxious right now. And that's very beautiful in a partner. I'm very grateful that he didn't downplay some of the like anxieties I had and some of the things, and that he didn't like push back. But at the same time, I know it kind of made him feel less like his self and less like a man and less worthy of just being able to do things in his own way. And I know that even if he hasn't told me that, it probably translates to the bedroom as well, where he's just like, let me just honor what she needs instead of allowing him to be like, no, this. And
Yeah.
so
I feel like that goes into like, things outside the bedroom or what like makes shit happen inside the bedroom because like if my mind's not stimulated by things you're doing outside, then when we get inside the bedroom, I'm probably not going to get there. And like we
Yeah.
both want us to get there, both of us. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
really important to like kind of go into like sharing responsibilities equally is like, okay, just and that doesn't mean because I do the dishes, he doesn't have to because he's masculine. No. It means like allow
Yes.
him have trust in him to do his masculine duties the way he wants to. If he freaking washes the dishes, okay, actually, this is a great example. For me, when I do the dishes and I put them in the dishwasher, I wash them a little bit and then I put them in. He just throws them in. It works, okay? But for me, I just wouldn't do that. And so I just allow him to do that. But we're doing shared responsibilities like equally, right? We're sharing everything equally. And I feel like when my mental load isn't like a like clumberfuck of like what do I have to do and I got to do all this oh not on top of this I got to tell him to do this and this, then in the bedroom I'm not going to want to be doing anything. I want to go to sleep. I'm tired, I'm exhausted. It just all kind of goes back to this like full circle moment of like sharing responsibilities, having communication, loving each other, physical touch, like all the things that we're talking about really does all feed into each other, which also creates a healthy relationship in general. So if you feel like maybe your relationship isn't doing well in one of these areas, I would definitely just try to focus on one more than the other. I kind of want to go back to communication just really quick because something that I had learned within doing the asking for what I want, it was literally what my coach had told me was to ask for what you want in the small ways. Like one of her examples was if you go to a restaurant and your steak is wrong, you wanted it medium rare and they give it to you, I don't know, well done, ask for it. Ask for it. You're paying for it. Ask for it. It's like start implementing those small things. And maybe it's with your partner, right? So he left his drawers on the floor and you want him to not be doing that anymore. You want to just put them in the damn laundry bin, right? Just be like, hey, next time, can you please just put this in the bin? Or hey, can you pick this up and put it in the bin where it belongs? Like small things, okay? Because the small things will eventually lead to bigger things and it'll be easier for you to ask what you want in your day to day and communication in general, or, in the bedroom. So just take that time for yourself. And really, I think kind of where everything circles back around in general is working on you, right? In order for you to really be able to implementing all of these things, communication, quality. I have these written down. So communication, quality time, shared responsibilities, keeping the romance alive. What you want to do is work on you because you are the main denominator in that, right? Like, yes, we want to shame and blame and kind of put our responsibility sometimes on our partners, but the truth is, I am not the problem, but I am the denominator in this circle, right? I need to figure out what I'm not doing because if I can work on just asking for what I want, things could be done for me, right? So it just really goes back to you, like being so fucking for real with yourself. I want to start like just like implementing that into my day to day. I love the be so fucking for real, but like with myself, not with other people, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that everything we've talked about is in terms of a healthy relationship. If
Mm-hmm.
you're in a toxic relationship and like for real, get, find your way out. Like there's a difference, and it's not saying like we don't want you to be in a toxic relationship and then hear this and you're like, you're right, it is me. Like don't gaslight yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, no,
It
no.
might very well be your shit ass partner, okay? Like there is a big difference, and being real with yourself could very well mean like, yo, this really isn't the relationship with me. And a reminder that like there are
Yeah,
men out there, there are partners, women, uh, whoever you date, there's someone out there who's going to be in a healthy relationship where these things aren't like toxic fights and abuse and all these things. Like that's not what you should be putting up with. That's not what you should like, oh well, what am I doing wrong? That is a different conversation. And I
yeah,
just want to like preference that because I know that all of us deal with different relationship dynamics. And um I know in one of my like most toxic relationships that if I would have heard that without that preference, I'd have been like, oh shit, am I doing something wrong? Am I like internalizing a shitty man, in my case, or shitty woman? Anyone you date can be
mhm,
shitty. And so if that is the case, like you're be fucking for real with yourself is like, okay, get out,
yeah,
find someone else, find yourself, heal through that and heal yourself so that the next partner you'll actually be able to recognize a lot sooner if they're meant for you or not. And like you'll be able to really step into a healthy relationship in a healthy way once you like heal through the shit that got you. Cause like, yeah, there's probably an internalized reason. I know I didn't have a lot of self-love for myself when I was in that toxic relationship. So there was inner healing I needed to do in order to recognize this healthy relationship I'm in now. And so, yeah, just want to preference that real quick because there's a big difference. And we're both Dakota and I are both very blessed to be in relationships that allow us to move through this healing together and grow together and communicate together in a way that's healthy and beautiful, and hopefully painting the most beautiful example for our child so that when he grows up, he can recognize a good relationship and a good person and have the knowledge on how to move through things in a healthy way. Because at the end of the day, I think as parents, that's all we want, right? Is we want to be able to showcase and be an example of a good person and human, but also like a good relationship if you are in a relationship as a parent. I know somebody might be a single parent or whatnot. And having a healthy relationship really does start with having a healthy relationship with yourself.
Yep.
And that's, I think, to tie it into what Dakota's saying, like, yeah, we do need to look in and we do need to heal the parts of ourselves that need healing so that we can either like be all that we need to be for ourselves if you're a single parent, but also like be who you need to be for your healthy relationship if you are in a relationship with your co-parent.
100%. I think just one more I wanted to add on there, aside from all the ones that we already listed, is to celebrate the small wins, right? So celebrate, okay, hey, we had a full night of sleep with the baby the whole night. Let's celebrate that. It's like celebrating every small thing that you guys get to accomplish together, because I feel like that just creates more, love and connection between each other. Something that I kind of came up with the other day was like this analogy of like, when you have your baby, even if it's your niece, nephew, cousin, whatever, and you see them do something, you're like, yay, go you. Like with every little thing that they're doing, that's how you should be celebrating yourself. Not just you and your partner, but yourself as well. Like, hey, I got this done. Hey, I worked through asking for what I want. Let me celebrate myself, because it does really start with you, right? So celebrating yourself and focusing on yourself first is really going to not only help you, but the way people see you go about your life and what you're doing is really going to inspire them as well. So it can help your partner just by you telling them like, hey, I got this done, I'm so proud of myself. Maybe they can be like, hey, I got this done, I'm so proud of myself too. Like, it's a beautiful dynamic. And it goes back to, again, the law of free will, like Danielle mentioned quickly. If you don't know what that means, it's pretty much a law, the universal laws. I've had a couple on my story. We're probably going to go down into like a content creation of doing all of them. So you guys stay tuned for that. But the law of free will just states that everyone has their own free will, right? You yourself has the choice and the choice to do anything in this lifetime, but also you have the choice at any moment to change. But so does anybody else, and that you don't have the right to try to change someone. They have to do that on their own. They're going to do that on their own. It's their free will and it's your free will. So just leading by example and inspiration for other people can really bleed into their lives too. So yeah, just celebrating yourself and working on yourself in general. I feel like that's the overarching one I want to just really touch on.
Yeah, and to mention, like, also celebrate your partner, celebrate things they
Yeah.
do, and be sure to like. Something I've had to remind myself a lot of times. I find that I'm really easily will. It's something I'm working through, but it's easy for me to pick out things that Daniel isn't doing or kind of mention certain things. And lately, I'm like, I need to honestly check myself and start to honor and like, thank you for doing
Yeah.
the dishes, thank you for working so overtime this week, thank you for always making, like, be sure to thank them too, especially
Yeah.
if you are dating a man. I feel like a lot of times I personally forget that they also love words of encouragement, and sometimes they also need, like, bring them home some flowers, I don't know shit, but like thank them for
Yeah.
things. I saw something the other day where I don't know if this is a fact, but like where most men don't receive flowers until their funeral, and I was like, man, that's kind of sad, because like Daniel loves looking at flowers when we're on walks and stuff. I'm sure he would thoroughly enjoy me bringing home some flowers or something to like thank them in our day to day for just doing like even mundane things that can kind of like give them more confidence and more instead of just like constantly like, oh, well, I wish you would do the dishes more often or this and that or whatever it is. I don't know why I keep going back to the dishes. I guess it's just
It's
the
the
easiest
easiest
thing.
one,
It's the
yeah.
easiest one, but like little things. And Daniel is such an active parent, and I've tried really hard throughout it. Like, and he kind of laughs it off sometimes when I'm like, thank you for taking care of Oliver this morning so I could get stuff done. He's like, I'm his dad. But at the same time, like he deserves that recognition, even though it's like for a small thing, just like I deserve that same acknowledgement and appreciation and stuff. So don't hesitate to kind of like, and if you're someone who also nitpicks, like that's fine. It's all part of healing, but also just remember like to preference that with something they're doing right, to be like, look, I love the way you do this. And if we could like shift this, make sure you give them words of affirmation too, because they're doing it too. They're trying just as hard too. And even if they don't communicate their needs in the same way, because I know Dakota and I both would deal with that, like he might not ever tell me that he needs me to tell him that he's appreciated, but like I know he probably feels that way sometimes. I
Hmm.
know sometimes when he comes home to a hard day, it's like, damn, and I still got to do nighttime routine and I still got to do this, but like he's happy to do it. And that's why he deserves my appreciation for it. Like, hey, thank you so much for doing nighttime every single night when you get off of work. Because I
Yeah.
know work is exhausting, yet he still comes home and clocks into dad right away after
Yeah.
his hour-long shit and shower. But that's not the point.
That's not what we're talking about here.
That's not what we're talking about. And you know what?
No,
He deserves it, but also he just deserves a lot of praise as well. And I'm sure you
we
guys with
all do.
healthy, yeah, we
Yeah.
all do. And people with active partners definitely deserve praise, because I know a lot of people don't get that. And I have not want for once, and that's the one thing I've never really taken for granted, because I know how like special it is to have an active father role where he really is hands on. I can go out of town and I don't have to leave him notes or messages or check
Oh,
in,
yeah.
because I trust, because I know he does this as much as I do.
Yeah, I think trust is such a big one too, right? Even whenever I was thinking about this, whenever you were talking about the financial situation, like allowing him to take roles on that, it's like having full trust in whatever they do, that they're going to do it their way, yes, but they're also going to do it right. It's going to come out the way our outcome would come out too. Maybe just the way we got there is a little different, right? And that's okay. It's just having this full on trust that whatever they're doing and whatever we're doing is fine too. And I think going back to celebrating the small wins, I wanted to mention that. I'm forgetting. What did you say? Okay. Sometimes I think in the past, for me personally, I think Danielle maybe too, I would come with this energy of as he should. Well, as he should be doing the dishes. As he should be doing the
Yeah.
laundry. And yes, that's true. But also, appreciation goes a long way, man. It really does. Because yes, he should be doing the laundry, even though I'm the one who did, like, I put it on the bed. He sees it. Yes, he should do it, right? That's common sense, at least for me. But
Yeah.
it's like, but also, thank you for doing that, because like it doesn't hurt anybody to say fucking thank you, you know? If anything, it's going to
Exactly.
make someone feel good. It's going to make them feel appreciated and loved. And like, hey, because she feels so appreciative every time I do this, maybe I'll do it more. And I'm not saying like that's why you should, but I'm just saying like, it's the small hints of like appreciation that really go a fucking long way.
Yeah, it's like one thing rolls into another. Like that, we're not saying thank you to like get anything in return, but the more you show appreciation, the more it relaxes the energy, the more it makes them feel
Mhm.
compelled to do something, the more like it's similar to being in like a toxic versus healthy relationship. There's things that I do for Daniel happily that I would have never done for any of my exes ever, but because he treats me so well that I feel inclined to, I want to.
Mhm.
I do these things out of the happiness in my heart because he does appreciate them, because he shows me that. And I think all of this is kind of like more so to say that if you are in the roommate phase and in a healthy relationship, it's normal. The most healthy of relationships are going to go through the roommate phase, because everything shifts. It's so different and life is so different that you have to kind of like work your way out. And Dakota and I are both kind of still in that process of like working with, these are the things that are helping us work our way out and
Mhm.
find a comfort in it at the same time, and not always like oh, when we get here, it'll be better, but finding ways to make it better here and now, like finding whatever you can do. If that means you have a candlelit date night in your room and while the monitor's on, and whatever it takes, because I know it's hard, but also just like really, really putting forth the effort when you have the mental space. I didn't have the mental space for it any part of the first year. I can promise you that. But now that we're moving into like year 2, it's like, okay, we can kind of like put some focus back into us, put some like joy and love and like the stress free back into us as a couple, and like find ourselves outside of parenthood again, and to just kind of like have compassion for both of you in that process, and know that it might feel really tough right now, but in a few years it won't, or in a few months, or however long it takes. Healing's not linear, and um, not everyone has help, so it does make it a little more difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't find a way, and it doesn't mean you won't one day be in an even better spot than you ever were before.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Definitely. The roommate phase is not going to last forever, guys. As long as you're working on it, right? If you're actively working on it you can get out of it. And I already feel like I'm only a year, like Harper just turned a year, right? Is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like we're already getting out of it too, which I'm really blessed of. But I've also done a lot of internal work. And I know a lot of us not doing it in the bedroom was placed on me, or us not having conversations is placed on me, because if I'm coming from a place of like anger and angst, then of course things aren't going to be worked on. It has to be like an equal, again, sharing responsibilities equal. So you guys can come out of it. I promise you. Just keep working on it. And you don't have to send him this podcast, but maybe just talk to him about the things that we listed. So I'm going to repeat them back to you just so that we can, get a clear view of everything. So communication, number 1, right? Prioritize your quality time, share responsibilities equally, celebrate small wins, keep the romance alive, and working on ourselves. Can you add any, D?
No, that's sums up pretty much everything we talked about, and just uh, holding compassion for each other, and honoring the fact that just like every stage, right? The newborn stage felt like it was forever long. It felt like I was never going to get sleep again. It felt like all these things, and just remind yourself, like, just like that stage is over now and I moved on, the roommate phase will move through. You got to move through it. You got to kind of just honor where you're at in that time period, and trust the fact that as long as y'all stick together and you're like work on yourselves independently and each other together,
Mm-hmm.
and have appreciation for each of your roles, you'll make it through. And I am guaranteed it'll be even better on the other side, because you're going to have such a deeper connection and a deeper understanding of each other, and a deeper knowing of each other in a way that like you just never would have before kids. That's for sure. And you share this great love, and there's so much beauty in what you create when you have a child. I know the older Oliver gets, the more I see like both me and Daniel in him, and it's just such a beautiful feeling, and it makes like my love for him, watching him be a dad, just so much stronger. And it just really is a beautiful thing when you kind of come out of it. Even there's a message in that mess, and it's just it's really great. So if you're in the thick of it, just know it won't be that way for long, and you'll get through it in such a powerful way with each other.
Yeah. I think just touching on that is, what is it, you got to go through it to, I'm trying to say, right? You got to go through it to heal
Can't
it.
go over it, can't go under it,
That's not
gotta
what I was talking
go through
about.
it.
But yes,
That's we
pretty
read
much
that. That's a
pretty much
book.
there's a saying that says, you got to go through it in order to really get through it, right? To get to the other side, to get to the end of it. So not the end of it, but to get out of the hard and stickiness.
Yeah.
So you guys will get through it. Just a little affirmation to leave you with is, my partner and I are just naturally tuned into each other. And also, I think whenever you are creating an affirmation for you, obviously you want to really, what do you guys need to work on, right? Is it, I know that one's like one that can overarch all of them, but maybe tune into like, what's another affirmation that I can use? Like, my partner and I are getting better each day at communication, something like that, right? But yes, overall, my partner and I are just naturally tuned into each other. So
Beautiful.
that's all we have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you feel like this definitely helped you and you're feeling all the good vibes, please send it to someone that you know would also enjoy it or also needs help getting out of the freaking roommate phase. Or if you guys feel compelled, which I hope you do, please leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. It helps our podcast grow. It also helps us reach more people. Not only that, yeah, we just really want to grow a bigger community. And so if you guys aren't in the community already for Facebook, head to the link other in the show notes and get into that. It is a lot of moms. However, it doesn't just have to be moms. You can not have a child too. So just get in
Yeah.
there.
Exactly. And if you have a friend or a mom friend, if you're not a mom and you listen to this episode, send it to someone who may need it. If you're feeling ballsy, send it to your partner so they can also hear it. I think it's beautiful when you guys can get together and listen to these things and work on certain things together. So don't be afraid to send it and share it and help us grow the community as well. So we love that you're here and we're very, very thankful for every listener we have. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and it resonated in some way or form. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Appreciate you
Bye.
guys. Bye.